And if you just press record, it'll
Yeah.
start to record. All right, awesome.
Now with thinking about cost of goods sold. So when you rethink your menu, you want to think about, and this is where it's a challenging thing. You know, you want to think about, are you doing food delivery or food pickup from a customer service standpoint, from a revenue standpoint? And those are two different things. You know, you have to really start looking at your costing and how much are you going to project to make. I know different businesses are doing this for different reasons. And you just want to know going in is what is that financial cost on the business, and are you generating any potential revenue? For some businesses, they're doing it for goodwill for the community, and actual revenue is less of a concern, where other businesses are doing it for revenue stream to be financially viable during the situation. So it's important that you understand that going into it, and that way the business makes a good, educated decision on what the expectations are, both from a financial standpoint. You know, so that's why I still recommend costing out any of those dishes that you plan on serving. You know, what is including in thing is packaged condiments. You know, if you have French fries, how much do the condiments cost? How much does the to-go containers cost? Because depending on what you're utilizing, some of those can get quite costly. Are you including in that in your overall cost for that item itself? So you really want to have a good grasp financially on how much of these things cost and what is your actual revenue. You know, if you're doing 5 deliveries an hour, 10 deliveries an hour, or 5 pickups an hour, 10 pickups an hour, how much projected revenue that is. And also looking at menu engineering. So what menu engineering is that you are taking in your profitability versus your popularity. In a nutshell, you know, when it comes to food cost, that only gives you part of the picture. You want to take a look at your food cost times how popular that dish is to see really how much is that contributing to your bottom line. If you want to take it one step further, then also take a look at your labor. A quick example of that would be, you know, if a dish yields $10 but takes 5 hours worth of labor versus a dish that yields $9 in profitability but only takes 5 hours worth of labor, ultimately, even though you might be making less per dish, you're actually generating more money to the bottom line because the labor cost is less. So you really want to take a look at the profitability, the popularity, and also taking in consideration into your labor cost. That will give you a better, truer picture than just saying, oh, the food cost is 25%, or oh, the food cost is 30%, or the beverage cost is 15%. I think the more financially attuned you are, allows you to give a true picture on the profitability. You know, I always say when you're busy, it can hide for a lot of financial mistakes. But when things slow down, financial mistakes stand out that much more. So continue doing your costing, including costing of packaging and everything else, to ensure that you have a firm grasp on the profitability. And that allows you to make an educated decision on what is best for your overall operation itself. You know, there's been talk about a lot of things like value added, you know, to-go cocktails. I'll touch more about that in a little bit on the legalities of that. Do you do cocktail mixers? So do you say, you know, make margarita mix where the guest has the tequila at home and you're supplying fresh margarita mix? Value added with wine and beer. Do you say, you know, family dinner or date night, in-house date night, and that includes a bottle of wine? So you know, they call up or they come to your place and they get dinner for 2, and you call it date night. And then you have a bottle of wine that's included with that, or beer or cocktail or whatever it may be. You know, with a lot of families being under one roof, make it at home kits such as pizza, where you make dough, you give them the sauce, they make it at home themselves. Is that cookies, where you make cookie dough, supply sprinkles, whatever else to go with it. So at home, they can make cookies. I know a lot of families being under one roof, how do they do engagement with each other without getting on each other's nerves? And cookies might be a way for that. If you really want to take a step forward, how could you turn that into an educational experience for those children in the household? So turning it into a lesson plan for the kids, and the outcome could be cookies or something of that nature. So that would be something value added, and I know a lot of families are looking for right now. And basic provisions, selling olive oil, selling uh, sliced meat, or selling bread, or selling, so they're picking up dinner, and then also, oh yeah, we need a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, a dozen eggs in the house, making it almost like a one-stop shop. So you're giving that value added of, I'm just picking up more than dinner. Maybe I'm picking up supplies for breakfast the next morning. So maybe you do like a make it at home breakfast kit where it's eggs, bacon, whatever it may be. And then I did put down toilet paper because that's the hot thing right now in this country. And maybe throw that in there. It is a little tongue in cheek, but also a concern for some people of like, stop by, you pick up a roll of toilet paper while you pick up a pizza or a burger or whatever it may be. And then gift certificates. So there's been a lot of talk about gift certificates. And the challenge with gift certificates, to be quite frank, is it's fool's gold potentially, and long term can be damaging. So the problem about gift certificates is you're really putting a cost on your balance sheet. And under normal circumstances, you're accounting for that cost, but then when that guest goes redeem it, it's moving off your balance sheet. So the problem with gift certificates is if you sell a lot of them now, if they decide to redeem them all at the same time, say December, you might have already spent that money. So when they go to redeem it, you don't have that money in your account to cover your cost. I'm not saying don't do gift certificates. I think each establishment business needs to make their own decisions based off of what their needs are. But just keep in mind with gift certificates, eventually, if a guest decides to redeem it, if all your guests decide to redeem it about the same time, you're pulling all that revenue, or you're pulling all that cost because you've already spent what you've obtained from that gift certificate. So if you do sell gift certificates, keep track of them, keep track of how much you sold, keep track of the value. So that way, when they start to redeem, you can balance out. You're balancing out your P&L statements, your cost balance sheets, so you have a firm understanding what's coming in and what's going out, coming out financially. I don't have on here, but hats, T-shirts, logoed wear. If you're currently doing it, that's a thing possible to sell. Depending on how long we stay under this situation, I think people will be looking more for in-home social engagement. And that's where you're making home kits or cookie dough kits or whatever thing might be even more value as people are looking for more types of engagements. I don't have it on here. I know some people are doing it. They're doing live stream cooking lessons where you sell provisions to a couple people, and then you have your chef or someone in the restaurant doing a at-home cooking lesson for everybody, how to make a soup, a stock, or something of that nature. These are different options that are out there. Now, when it comes to food delivery, what is your range? You want to establish, is it 5 miles, 10 miles? That comes into logistics, travel time, cost of gas, wear and tear on equipment on your vehicle or somebody else's vehicle. Other thing to consider is how will the guest place the order? Is it phone? Is it internet? I know one of the questions somebody asked earlier about having challenges of ringing in the order. Do you treat it manually? Do you ring it into your current POS? These are all things that you just want to fully think through. Each operation is different, as some operations currently don't utilize a point of sale system or POS system where everything's manually rung in, or paper dupe pad, where others of you might be utilizing Micros or Squirrel or some of the other systems that are out there. One thing I will have to say is with Talk and 7 Rooms. So those are two companies that I've been in contact recently. So Talk and 7 Rooms historically are reservation systems. So some of you might be utilizing OpenTable. Talk and Seven Rooms are companies that traditionally were in the reservation system. So what both of these companies have done is they've actually retooled their operation and have looked at how can they help the industry for food delivery. So Talk has created a platform where the guests can order online via their website. You can set up parameters on your delivery range. You can package things together. You can add service charge if you want. You don't have to, but then the guests would order to that website. Talk takes care of all the credit card transactions. I know Talk is 6%. Roughly, it's about 6% cost, but that includes credit card fees, even American Express. The other one be Seven Rooms. I just got an email from them this morning. They're doing 90 days complimentary utilizing their site. And then after that, I think it's $200 a month after that. Those are two things to consider for ease of trying to build out your own website. You don't have time to do that. Those are just two things to consider. Their fees are less than utilizing some of the other delivery models, food delivery models that are 20%, give or take, plus or minus, taken off the top. I think you'll see more platforms come out because I would not be surprised if OpenTable is trying to retool something currently right now because like OpenTable, their model is based off of customers booking reservations. That's their revenue stream. So how can they replace some of that revenue stream? When it does come to delivery service, you got to build that into your cost of using a delivery service. What is that costing you? How much are they taking out of your potential revenue? Last thing on this slide, service charge, gratuity. Some people are doing it, some are not doing it. That's a decision that you as an operation is going to have to make. Is that gratuity 18%, 15%, 20%? Service charge and gratuity a little bit different, quite frankly. Service charge legally, the establishment can decide how that gets paid out. So does that go to the cooks, the servers? Gratuity, the business cannot decide how gratuity gets divided out. The gratuity would go to that individual who is delivering that product. So just keep in mind on how you're wording. Do you have a delivery charge? Do you waive a delivery charge? Say delivery charge is waived if you spend $100. That is something to consider, and that's also a value added upsell, if you will, for a guest themselves. So if they're at $75, they throw in, I don't know, a couple gallons of olive oil and a dozen eggs. That takes them at the $100 range. Products that they'll use anyway. That's one thing to consider. When it comes to food delivery, I forgot kits. I used to work room service in multiple hotels, and on the floors we used to have closets with different things. So it saved the time of the server having to go all the way back down. I used to work in Las Vegas, so you can imagine. I think it was 20 minutes to deliver food in a room in Las Vegas. So to save time, we had I forgot kits. So for your delivery, I forgot kits could be extra condiments, so extra packets of ketchup or soy sauce, napkins, plasticware, cups, whatever it may be. So if the guest says, "Oh shoot, I forgot," you have it readily available. Maybe it's bottled water or something of that nature, or maybe it's like a 2-liter bottle of soda, depending on your establishment. Like, "Oh shoot, we forgot to order soda." Got you covered. Here's a 2-liter bottle of soda that you already have. For in-house delivery, I'm not an expert in this, but I would consult your insurance company because whose car is being utilized? Is it a company car? Is it their personal vehicle? Are they on the clock as an employee? Are they an independent contractor? These are all things to consider for car insurance and also for liability insurance. If an accident happened, who owns as far as the cost of that accident or disability, where does it fall? So I do recommend if you're going to have employees doing deliveries, talking to whoever law firm you're working with and talking to your insurance company so you fully understand what implications might be. when it comes to food delivery, alcohol sales, and I'll talk more about in a second, is just beware of underage drinking. As some individuals like, oh, cool, I get a 6-pack of beer delivered to my house. Yeah. You just want to be cognizant of alcohol sales and underage drinking when it comes to food delivery. Now, talking about alcohol, I skimmed down the legalese in New York State because New York State has vastly modified the laws. And this is taken literally from their site. Any on-premise license can sell alcohol for off-premise consumption. So a business has to have a current liquor license. If they don't, they cannot sell alcohol for at all, on or off-premise. And you can only sell items that currently match your license. So in other words, if you currently have a beer and wine license, you can only sell beer and wine off premise. If you have a full liquor license, beer, wine, and alcohol, then you can sell everything. So if you're just beer and wine, you cannot sell a bottle of tequila or something of that nature. So what you're selling has to match currently what your license is. Must be sold in a sealed or closed container. So you can't sell something without a lid. The law is very loose on what they consider sealed or closed container. They don't specify what is a sealed and closed container. Again, I mentioned earlier before about mason jars. That might be a way to go. Some of you might already have plastic to-go containers that utilize, or I should say, plastic containers that utilize for food storage. I have a case of myself that I use for freezing stuff. Maybe you put stuff in there. It does say alcohol beverages must be accompanied by the sale of food. So you cannot just sell a bottle of wine, a bottle of cider, a 6-pack of beer. Food must be accompanied with it. The law does say that potato chips, pretzels, and peanuts count as a food sale. It specifically says if somebody buys a bag of potato chips, then that counts as food. So therefore, you can sell that alcohol. So you just want to make sure that's clear with the consumer. And it does not say what the price of the potato chips has to be. So you can sell the potato chips for 50 cents if you wanted to. It just says it has to be sold. You cannot give it away. It has to be shown as a sale. Again, charge $1 for a bag of potatoes, whatever it may be. Deliveries are permitted. They could be third party. They could be within your establishment. So that's why vehicle owned and operated or hired and operated by the licensee or employee. So you can deliver alcohol. You must have a copy of the liquor permit or the license in the delivery vehicle. I would, if you're going to do alcohol delivery, I would put together a binder or something of that nature that has a copy of your liquor permits and any other pertinent information in that vehicle. It does say in regards to insurance, vehicle insurance, you must have vehicle insurance. And also, again, being worried about, just be cognizant of underage consumption and who you're delivering to. You don't accidentally cause a bigger problem. Hours of sale, current rules and regulations. Based off of locale, it says you're following current liquor laws in that manner. And then microbreweries, farm breweries, distilleries, wineries, and cider houses, their laws are a little bit different than restaurants. Depending on the type of license they currently have, they can currently have alcohol for sale, either for pickup, and they also do have the ability for delivery. Depending on the licensing, they do not have to have food. So some of the breweries, I know in Ithaca, do not have to have food because of their current licensing structure. Lastly, when it comes to go delivery, again, think about, do you build margarita kits? Do you start looking at your wine inventory and selling your wine inventory at an added value pricing structure, or creating different themes, dinner nights, date nights, and things of that nature? So there's definitely potential in that, which ties in the circle of life. This is literally a can of beer I picked up at Liquid State the other day. The reason why I call it circle of life is, as a community, we're all in this together. Say, can you buy from a local producer? Can you buy wine from somebody here in the area? Can you buy beer from somebody in the area, or produce, or meat, or dairy, or whatever it may be? I know it doesn't work for everything. For example, there's nobody making sugar in the area. So you're not going to buy sugar from a local producer, but is there honey or whatever to help support everybody. I think if we can help support each other, in the long run, as a community, will be that much stronger. So whenever you can, work with these local producers. I know at the farmers market, there's stuff that's starting to come into season, lettuces and mushrooms and things of that nature. Can you utilize with them? I know it's not always financially feasible, but it's definitely something to consider. And maybe you tag team with the local producers. So maybe utilizing X wine company, and again, you're doing that value added in conjunction with X winery. We now have this package, or working with X brewery, we now have this beer and food package, things that nature. As it starts to warm up, just popped in my head, do you start working with these producers and doing like at-home barbecue kits? So where you can pick up beer, burgers, dogs, whatever it is, they grill it at home, and it's like your backyard barbecue that they can easily do themselves. Now, I'm going to turn this over because we have two experts and much more knowledgeable on food industry resources.
So this is Robert Ralyea. I'm a senior extension associate in the Department of Food Science. I primarily deal with the dairy industry, but what we've come up with is a website for the food industry, because we have, obviously, in the food science department, a huge volume of expertise in produce, general food safety, dairy, wines and beer, obviously. And we've brought all these people together to come up with an asset for the community, well, actually for the world, basically, because it's on the World Wide Web, for you to be able to get information that is accurate and dependable. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Some of you were thinking, well, how long does this virus survive on a piece of cardboard, for example? Well, we've answered some of those questions. So if you look at the current slide, we have food industry resources and basic information on the coronavirus, as well as, go ahead to the next slide, Doug.
Sure.
On the next slide, we have a lot of frequently asked questions. And so with those frequently asked questions that we're getting, and we're getting a lot of them. For example, I heard a report that COVID-19 could survive on surfaces for 17 days. That's not true. That was in a report actually published by, I think, the CDC. But given the science, we can say that didn't happen. Another one would be, my essential services requires me to go to other businesses. So if you have delivery drivers delivering to other people, and you ask the question, how can I protect myself or my driver? We've answered that question as well. So there's a bunch of questions that we've been fielding and answering. If you have a question, you can feel free to reach out to us. I'll let Doug go to the next slide.
Because I also have at the end the email addresses. Right now, this website is my go-to for information when it comes to COVID-19 and a lot of different platforms. It is very well done. It has a lot of factual-based information. As Robert is mentioning, a lot of rumors out there. There is actual research from different platforms, either published research, etc. So it is definitely worth looking at. That way you can make sound decision making and not what you're seeing on different channels, because I've seen some misinformation floating out there on how it can impact different things. So leave enough time for Q&A because we're about halfway through. One thing is consider is how do you make a contactless service? So how do you, because guests are fearful. We are fearful about, how long do I have to open up a door? Do I have to touch things? So how can you create a contactless service to ease the mind? I have a picture on the right is a 1950s automat. Reason why I put this picture up is the automat was contactless service. It was a giant vending machine. No, you're not going to build a vending machine, but think about how can you make it easy for the guests to pick up the food, or how do you make it easy for that home delivery? You know, some guests might not want an individual physically handling the bag of the food, opposed to leaving at the doorstep, ringing a doorbell, something in that nature. You know, hand sanitize stations. So if they're picking up the food, do you have hand sanitizer there for them to utilize, or bleach wipes, or whatever it may be? Do you create a system so messaging to the consumer saying your order's ready for pickup, or do you set out predetermined time saying the order's ready at 1 o'clock? We'll have somebody come. We'll have somebody just leave it on a table, so you're keeping that social distancing, and maybe not just handing it directly to the guest, but leaving it on a table, which ties back into how are they ordering. I touched about that earlier. And then also credit card transactions. You know, are you going to do it on site, or do you build it out so they do that virtually? Is it Venmo or some of the other cashless systems out there? There is concerns that people have, and I'm sure you as an operator with physically handing cash to someone. So if you decide to take cash, do they just leave it on a tray or in a container, so that you're not physically exchanging hands, and then you could spray it down with something if you want. So, you know, think about how are you going to do those transactions. If you're closed, you know, it's tough. I've been in this industry now for 30 years. I've never seen anything like it. In regards to bars being closed, quite frankly, there's nothing been like this since Prohibition. So it's unprecedented. It's all of us are uncharted waters. And unfortunately, I know a lot of businesses are simply closed. You know, so if you are closed, think about shelf life, freezer, refrigerator. You know, is somebody checking to make sure that freezer is running properly, or that refrigerator running properly, or do you simply clean out your food products, your perishables, and donating them to some type of local food bank organization that can utilize those products? When it comes to beverage storage, same thing. You don't necessarily have to move that inventory. That wine will keep. Even if somebody says drink by X date, you have a year leeway. So even if it's sat under the proper conditions, you have a little bit of time before it becomes an issue when it comes to wine. Beer, different story. Beer, depending on the type, might have a shelf life. When it comes to juices and things that dairy, obviously you want to make sure that you're handling that appropriately, because those do have immediate shelf life, so to speak. When it comes to beer on tap, if you have a beer on tap system, the Brewers Association has put out great information how to properly close down your tap beer system. There's a certain protocol that you should do. And again, the Brewers Association, and I have my email address later on. If you want to email me directly, I can send it to you on how to set it down correctly, so then you don't have issues when you come back to business. You know, messaging, you know, your website, your social media, what are you messaging, changing your website, whatever it may be, just so the consumer is aware if you are closed. When you reopen, firm believer, we're going to get over this. I'm an optimist. When we reopen, you know, now would be a good time to start thinking about menu changes, thinking about costing. When you reopen, staff training. I would be happy, because I'm a beer guy, to assist you with any type of beer training, talking to your staff about training. Cheryl Stanley, who teaches the wines course at Cornell University. Also, my wife, she'll be happy to assist with staff training when it comes to wine or service. You know, again, we want to make sure once we get out of this, that as a food and beverage community, we're stronger. When you reopen, thinking about cleaning, what is your cleaning schedule? What is your messaging? Do you do a grand reopening party? Something of that nature, getting it out that you are open. So I, you know, think about what is, when we get out of this, how are you going to gear things back up once this cycle does pass? Unfortunately, none of us know when. Unfortunately, there are different reports on when this might happen, but again, I'm an optimist, and I think it's never too early to start thinking about that. These are our email addresses. Again, please do not hesitate to email me. I could send you more information if you're interested on Talk or 7 Rooms, because I got information from those 2 companies, or anything else that I can be of assistance. So that leaves us time for questions. Does anybody have any questions? You just have to unmute your mic and then we can all hear your question. Oops, too far. Oh. Nobody has any questions? Cool. Okay. Did you get any? No. No.
I'll ask a question.
Please.
Do you have any data or any knowledge of how much to-go business is actually happening right now? If I'm a restaurant that is thinking about reopening just to do to-go or delivery, it's hard to kind of guess on what those numbers are.
I don't, and I know it varies nationally by location and population density. I've heard some restaurants in Chicago are doing quite well, population density. Unfortunately, here in Ithaca, we have the double whammy of both the universities being closed, which, as we all know, is a significant portion of our customer base. So I don't have any numbers on how successful restaurants are with food delivery.
Maybe the NRA.
The National Restaurant Association might have some data. If I find any, I'll be happy to share it. The other challenge too is for a consumer, how do they know who's open and who's not open? I did see a brief list in the Ithaca newspaper the other day. Getting that message out, which is why as a community, do we do, restaurant week? So there is some information put out about restaurants that are opening or they're currently open, and do like a restaurant week to help get the word out for the businesses that are open.
I've mainly seen restaurants dropping off the list. I mean, Gimme stopped selling stuff yesterday, so it's not a increasing trend, certainly.
No, and that's why, figuring out what is your cost, what is your break-even point, and what is best for financial viability for your establishment, and is it for profitability or customer service, which is 2 different models, and just really looking at the numbers and making a good decision on how much do I need to make, and break almost like a zero-based budget, saying, okay, to be profitable, I have to make X amount of money an hour. What does that equate to based off my price points? Is that 5 deliveries, 2 deliveries, 20 deliveries, or pickups, whatever that may be? And then looking at maximizing your hours, because it doesn't make sense to be open at 9 o'clock in the morning versus that evening 4 to 6, 4 to 7 range. That is also something to consider too. I don't have a straight answer on that because I think each business is slightly different.
NRA really doesn't have anything. They have
Hi there, Katie here. I also have a question regarding delivery. I'm wondering if you've heard anything maybe on the national level with companies like DoorDash, Grubhub, knowing that delivery and pickup is sort of the way to go. Are there any efforts or pressure being put on delivery companies that might consider lowering their percentage rates, some of which I know are like 30%? Wondering if there's
Yes,
any.
they are.
Yeah, okay.
It was, there's a lot of discussion about this beforehand. The other thing to consider, this kind of side note about those companies too, is they also, I don't want to say control, but have a hand in a lot of your messaging and websites and things of that nature. So that's, you fully want to vet that out as far as even after this. The one, if you have the ability, and again, talk to your lawyer and your insurance company of an employee doing deliveries for you. you might want to consider going the route of 7 rooms or talk, because they might be a little bit less expensive because those are more flat fee deliveries.
Cool, thank you.
I have a question. This is Nana.
Mhm.
If you're having a third party deliver for you, are they able to deliver your alcohol if you have a liquor license?
Yes. Yes, I would, in that order, that delivery person have a copy of your liquor license.
Okay.
But yes, they can deliver the alcohol for you.
Thanks.
And again, assuming that there's food sales. Any other thoughts or questions?
I got another one. What about bringing employees in? So we've been closed down for, a little over a week. And I'm not as worried about getting the food to the customer. I'm more worried about rehiring my employees and knowing that they have not been exposed. I don't want to lock myself in the kitchen with somebody who's been exposed. So do you have any hints on that or directions to go to look for more information on that?
Kim, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, you were an operator for a time frame.
You definitely would need to interview your employees to get an idea of what they've been doing for the past week and how much they could potentially have exposed themselves to, and also interview them as far as how they're feeling and, doing a wellness check, right? Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I believe on the website we have an SOP for employees, for example, and what you should be asking them. Basically, we have a staff meeting every day in the dairy plant. We have a few operators still operating there that are essential. And the questions are being asked, do you feel well today? Have you been exposed to anything? Do you know of any family members that you're exposed to that are sick? And then as well, we have social distancing information on the website. Actually, there's a frequently asked question that specifically addresses social distancing in food facilities. So I would basically refer you there.
Good, very good points. And I think that conversation with the employee is crucial. And then obviously making sure that they're operating in a safe manner when it comes to food safety.
I have another question maybe for Rob, having to do more with thinking about cost of food down the road and the ripple effect this might have, for instance, on the dairy industry, on the poultry industry. Is there a good place to go where we might be able to either anticipate or plan for price hikes in some things that we might use as an establishment, or thoughts on that?
Well, unlike the toilet paper industry, we're in pretty good shape.
All right.
I mean, all the dairies are operating and considered essential, for example,
Yep.
as are the meat processing plants. So I think this will have less of an effect on those industries. The transportation industries are obviously still running. So I just don't see a long-term price hike in any of those commodities that you mentioned.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we're in pretty good shape. I mean, the only issue that I would see is if there were a ripple effect by, one of our larger processors in any industry for that matter, having an exposure problem with people getting the disease and having to close a portion of their plants. But so far, I've not seen any of that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Well, I don't want to keep everybody, because I'm sure we all have multiple things going on. I just want to thank the chamber setting this up. And we all are resources up on the hill for you, as we are all part of the community. David's the one who started out, who reached out to Amy, who reached out to me, and I reached out to put this all together. So I want to thank everybody who attended today. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. I'll be happy to respond back. And once we get out of this, I'm more than willing to be assistance on helping everybody gear back up once we're back up and running. Hopefully, I pray it's sooner than later, but eventually we will be back up and running. Anything else to add, Mr. David?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Doug, Kimberly, Rob, Cheryl. Thank you guys for your time and insights. I think that this information is very helpful. Just wanted to let everyone know that was still on the call that we will be uploading this information to the Chamber's YouTube page. So for links to how to get there, you can find that information on the Chamber's website. Again, this is the first webinar in a series that we'll be doing in collaboration with Cornell University. So be on the lookout via our events page for other webinars coming down the pipeline. For our presenters today, again, a huge thank you for turning this around literally in less than a week. Your willingness to just share your knowledge and information with the community and stakeholders is invaluable, and I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that does conclude our business readiness webinar for today. Please stay tuned and on the lookout for other ones that we'll offer in the future. And you guys all be safe. Take care. Spirit hands, no handshakes and hugs.
Thank you.
Make sure you're practicing social distancing, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.